Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Cine-Files live here on the Cine-Files YouTube channel. I am one half of the Cine-Files, John Rocha, joined as always by my other half here, Steve Morris. How are you, Steve?
I'm doing very good, and I'm not happy about the circumstances, but I am happy to honor one of the great actors of my lifetime, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Someone who has spanned 7 decades of work in the industry, garnering numerous awards, numerous iconic characters, and of course, numerous tributes to him from his recent passing at 95 years old. And we are talking, of course, about the great Robert Duvall, who we lost earlier this week. As I said, he received an Academy Award, a BAFTA Award, 4 Golden Globe Awards, 2 Primetime Emmy Awards. So bring up that photo because I love this photo of him. Look how happy he looks there. A Screen Actors Guild Award, and was critically acclaimed for his technical proficiency and chameleon-like ability. So much so that the legendary Vincent Canby dubbed him the American Olivier in 1980, and the label stuck ever since for Robert Duvall. So, Steve, I know it's 95 is a very long life, and he certainly did a number of films and TV shows, got all these awards. But when you think about Robert Duvall now, looking back in his passing and his career and his work, and who he was as a person, what are the things that you think about and remember about Robert Duvall?
Well, it definitely isn't the American Olivier. I that's such a weird comparison to me because to me it's just like he's nothing like Olivier. Like I don't, I doesn't make sense to me at all. What's amazing to me and what I've really been thinking about is like, I mean, I think it's particularly because we lost Gene Hackman last year.
Yes, yes.
And it's like, oh, that's where this generation of actors is now in terms of their age. And I go, Duvall and Hackman, they are the 70s actors to me. You know what I mean? Like these are this particular brand of down to earth, absolutely real, incredibly powerful, both really versatile, both willing to play supporting roles, which is something I think we'll talk about quite a bit. Not everyone is. And Duvall's just Duvall, you know, like he's just one of those guys who can play very, very different characters and always brings that bit of himself to everything he does.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And of course, far be it for us to begrudge Vincent Canby's opinion, the legendary film critic Vincent Canby. But I agree with you. When I heard American Olivier, that's not what I necessarily thought, because I don't see Olivier as this working man's actor who did not deliver these grandiose attention-getting performances. That's not how I see Robert Duvall. I think the attention that's paid to Robert Duvall is because he doesn't he's not known for doing these outlandish, out there kind of characters or melodramatic kind of characters. They're much more guys that you would probably know, you grew up with, you saw, maybe your dad was one of those guys, or your uncle, or people you knew who were your friends' fathers. There was such an interesting approach to his world or his performances that I think connected with a lot of us on a soulful level, because we felt that this was someone that we know. And I think that's one of the reasons why he is overshadowed by people like Pacino, De Niro, Hackman, Hoffman. These are all his contemporaries, but he's overshadowed at times by them because they deliver the more attention-getting performances. Yet I would argue in some really intellectual and moving ways, Duvall's performances were every bit as good as anything that De Niro, Hoffman, Pacino, or Hackman delivered during their lifetimes, and especially in their primes in the 70s and 80s.
I think one of the differences to me, like Hoffman, the method guy, he's going to become whatever it is that that's the theory, right?
Yes,
he's going to totally transform himself. And I certainly know that there are movies where Duvall was extremely method and did that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But what I don't see, it's not there. There is I guess, a down to earthness about Duvall's performance and a personalness about it that I find is really different. It's funny. I remember the story where Coppola invited all of the actors up to his place in Marin County and had them a big Italian dinner with Talia Shire serving, and all of them fell into their characters a little bit with with James Caan trying to be really tough and impress Brando, and Al Pacino being sort of quiet and observing in everything.
Yeah.
And apparently Robert Duvall was just busting Brando's balls. And there was a story I remember from The Godfather where that they had to do, I think it was the scene where they go to the Undertaker because Sonny is dead.
Yeah.
And Brando apparently went to Coppola and said, can I take a minute before the scene? And so then Duvall, for like having to do like a reaction shot, went up immediately to Coppola's like, I'm going to need a minute. And so there was a lot of ball busting. Like, it seems like Duvall didn't have, there was some insecurity he was missing, I think, in terms of his performance, that he just stepped into things 100%. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think, when you study Robert Duvall, and certainly getting ready for our conversation today, I went through a number of articles reading about his upbringing, reading about his time in getting to become an actor. There's something about his upbringing that I think colors his approach to acting, which is what makes those moments believable from someone like Robert Duvall, because he is a guy that seemed to take the craft as seriously as he needed to take it while he was doing it, but always understood there was more going on in the world. It wasn't that serious, right? But he dedicated himself to the craft. He studied, theatrically trained, did his time on the stage before he got in front of a camera. Like, he was a part of some really incredible productions as he was getting stronger and stronger as an actor, but he wasn't good in school. He was essentially almost failing out of school. And his father, who had been a Navy guy, wanted him to go in the Navy, but he couldn't. He's like, I just didn't see any logic in that because I was no good at anything but acting. He did eventually serve in the military, in the army, for a couple of years in the 50s. But like, it seems to me that he lived a life that was very much outside the world of acting before he walked into the world of acting, and seemed to keep himself very clear with one foot in the real world, one foot in the acting world, and never sliding into that state of pretentiousness about it. And so when you talk to me and tell me about how he busted Brando's balls, that makes sense, because Duvall wouldn't have taken it that seriously because he was so good at it and trained at it. He didn't need to draw attention to it. And I think there's a rarity in that with a lot of actors who achieve success in front of the camera and on the stage.
I think you've put your finger on a cleavage that is really important that we don't talk about enough, which is that
Yeah,
I do. No, I really do. Which is that, because basically is what you're pointing out is that Duvall took the art of acting really, really seriously.
Yes.
But he actually didn't take himself that seriously.
Yes.
And you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I know I've said it before, but the idea of like, there's a reason that it's called a play. Like, we're all getting up and putting on silly outfits and pretending to be people we're not. That is a ridiculous thing to do. And even though you take it really seriously because you want to do the best possible job, he's not. And that's why I immediately had that reaction against the American Olivier, because everything I always hear about Olivier, he took himself real seriously.
Yes.
And any slight that came at him, he was offended, and it was, and that's not Duvall at all.
Yeah. But then we do have that story where he told Hoffman, try acting, son, when Hoffman went too far the other side. So there's an irony in that. But yes, from what we know about Olivier, he very much took himself seriously. But what are some of the roles, and thank you to everybody who's joining us live. I see some super chats have already come in. Thank you so much. Please feel free to send in your Streamlabs and super chats as we go along. What are your thoughts on Robert Duvall? What are some of your favorite performances, movies, scenes, from TV shows or from on screen there in your theater, in your local theater? What do you think about when you think about Robert Duvall? Send us your questions, thoughts, and comments. We will read them on the air as we go along, for sure. But Steve, what are some of the roles that stand out for you when you talk about or you think about Robert Duvall and think about his legacy as an actor?
Well, the first one that really stood out, I don't know that it was the first movie I saw, but it's Apocalypse Now. I mean, like that is Duvallness to the max. That is the ultimate of Duvall in my feeling. And what's so crazy, he has arguably the most famous line in the movie, one of the most famous sequences in the movie with the Rise of the Valkyries and the attack in the helicopters. He's only in the movie for like 10 or 15 minutes.
Right.
boy, oh boy, every second he's on screen. And you've mentioned his character multiple times in multiple contexts recently as the person who you just knew was never going to get a scratch.
Yeah.
You know?
There are just some
Amazing.
people, you know that. Yeah, and I agree. And the thing is, when you see this, when you read about how he created that character, the character was originally much more over the top, much more ridiculous. And the thing is, Robert Duvall approached that character, went to Coppola, and said to him, "Hey, man, I want to make this guy a little more realistic. I'll still keep the fantastical nature of him, but I want him to be a little more realistic, a little more grounded." And he's the one who came up with the outfit, the scarf, all of this stuff, because of people he had known when he was, because he was a naval brat, he had met in the military. And he said, there were guys just like this in the military. I know I met two guys like this in the military that you were just like absolutely blown away how nothing phases them and they just power through and nothing ever touches them. And you're just amazed at it because you're just a ball of nerves. And so seeing this again, the realistic approach to a somewhat fantastical character, I think is the key to that role that makes it stand out. It is one of those rare roles that is like really attention getting that Duvall did because of how he, I think, used his voice, how he used his body, and how he delivered these scenes, and how much of a conflicting character he was. One moment wanting to give water to the person who is dying, then the second something distracts him, like Lance, he drops the water on top of the person who was who it looked like he was being incredibly gracious to. So it's just a phenomenal thing that you watched him perform that. And I think if he hadn't applied that realism that he had learned from watching guys in the military, the character wouldn't have been as iconic and enduring as it has been.
You know what's funny about that character? It's almost the opposite of what I was just saying about Duvall. I said, Duvall took the work seriously, but didn't take himself seriously. This guy takes himself seriously. This guy, it is all about his show. And if his show, if part of the show is showing compassion to a person by giving them some water, absolutely, he's going to do that show until, oh, wait, something over there. And then he's totally not in, because it wasn't about that at all. It was always just about performing the role of this great military hero.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was, I was saying to Steve before we started the show, how I was really surprised at how some of the stuff that Robert Duvall grew up connected to and becoming a part of is stuff that is kind of intersected into my life. And so it was a really weird thing for me to discover that I didn't know all this stuff about Robert Duvall. First of all, I didn't know he was born in San Diego. He was born in San Diego, where I currently live now, in 1931. As I said, his dad was an admiral, a rear admiral in the United States Navy. His father was from Virginia, which is where I grew up, and descended from early Maryland settler Maureen Duvall. So that's how far back the Duvalls go in that sense. He went to college. He went to school in Severna Park, Maryland, which is, I drove through Severna Park a number of times living in Virginia. And as I said, his father wanted to get into the Naval Academy, but he really didn't gravitate to that. And instead, he served in the United States Army after the Korean War for 2 years, and leaving as a private first class. And he was stationed at Fort Gordon in Georgia, which is where I was stationed at for my AIT training in Augusta, Georgia. So there was just little things like that. But it was in Augusta where he started to get into acting. He got into a production of Room Service in Augusta, and that kind of started him down this process of acting, got into the neighborhood Playhouse School of Theater in New York City, and then starts studying with Sanford Meisner under the GI Bill. His classmates are Gene Hackman, James Caan, who he would, of course, later be in with The Godfather. Then he lived with Dustin Hoffman and Gene Hackman, and both Hoffman and Hackman felt that Duvall was the most talented of the three of them. So it's a fascinating world to see. It's almost like the Beatles. These guys in a small town in Liverpool somehow become some of the greatest musicians ever, bringing these three actors into one room. And then you add James Caan into the time as a contemporary, they're acting in the same school. I mean, it's just amazing to think about how much talent was rolling through there, and Duvall kind of carving out his own niche amongst all these incredibly talented actors.
It's just this magical thing, thinking about these guys before their careers hit, all hanging out together. I mean, just like us, you know what I mean?
Yes,
like that's the thing, is in those moments before success, They're just struggling people. And you totally had the thing where, I mean, it's like we were talking when we did Superman, is that Christopher Reeve is in like an off-Broadway play with William Hurt, and I forget who there was another big actor with him at the time that he's auditioning for Superman. It's like, yeah, all these people coming up. And I just think about what that means for Hackman and Hoffman to say, no, Duvall was the most talented of us. I mean, that's something, because those are not guys that are shy about their abilities, you know.
And those are guys who were like, they were voted the least likely to succeed, yet they succeeded in such incredible ways. But they certainly knew how talented Robert Duvall was overall. And listen, Duvall got into, as I was saying, a lot of plays there in the 50s at the Gateway Playhouse in doing Equity Summer Theater in Long Island. He was in productions of Time Out for Ginger, Picnic, The Cat and the Canary, Arthur Miller's Crucible, Dark of the Moon, Bus Stop, which became a movie as well. Frederick Knott's Dial M for Murder. These are all plays that he did on stage. Agatha Christie's Witness for the Prosecution, Arthur Miller's A View from the Bridge. Miller himself attended one of Duvall's performances as Eddie, and during that performance, he met important people, which allowed Duvall in 2 months to land the lead in the Naked City television series. That's how he gets into television. But before we get there, he's also still performing on stage. He performs in DC at the Arena Stage, which I've been to a number of times, the McLean Theater in Virginia, which I'd been to a couple of times as well. So clearly working on his craft in great plays in numerous places. He was Jimmy in The Rainmaker. He was Stanley Kowalski in Tennessee Williams' A Streetcar Named Desire in 1959. And then he was in Romanoff and Juliet there in 1959 as well. He acted in Tennessee Williams's Camino Real as well, and did a number. And then Mrs. Warren's Profession from George Bernard Shaw. So this is a guy who is holding his skills in multiple plays that are of real renown and note, and developing himself as an actor the whole time. It's just fascinating to think about how all this stuff has happened before we ever see him on screen, which we'll get to in just a second. And Steve, for me personally, I love it when an actor is built and forged in the theater, because if they're good and they survive and keep getting cast, that when you see them on screen, they're really going to knock you on your ass watching his performances.
I feel the same way. I mean, this is him making his bones. And the thing is, and I learned this, and I mean, there are actors who have a theater background, and there are actors who have only a film background. Mm-hmm. There are fantastic actors who do not have a theater background. You can be an unbelievably great movie star and never trod the boards, as they say.
Yeah.
But I learned something, particularly with young actors, when I first started looking at headshots and resumes and they come in for auditions, is that if you saw a list of 27 commercials for national brands, they're a working actor and they're very successful. It does not mean the same thing as if you saw that they played Eddie in A View from the Bridge at a reputable theater. That's because the job of showing up and doing a Toyota commercial and saying, wow, the handling on this Celica is beautiful. I mean, that takes a very special skill, but that's not the same thing as being in an Arthur Miller play and Eddie's a big part. And I know what they did if I see that someone was in, in Arthur Miller or in, Camino Real or something like that from Tennessee Williams and some of the stuff, he played Stanley Kowalski. Like Stanley Kowalski is a no bullshit part. I know something about that actor by seeing that line on the resume. And the thing is, you have to be able to do the craft to do a whole play, particularly in the big part in one of those plays. You can't be full of shit. Like, you have to have done the work, and it says something about Duvall that's what he did.
I think one of the most saddest things in our real world is that we can't go back and watch performances like that. I would love to see Robert Duvall's version of Stanley Kowalski. I would love to see him screaming Stella. It would be so believable. Or talking to Blanche Dubois in a certain way, or because he had that ferocity in him. Duvall had that ferocity when he needed to in certain roles. And so to see him do Kowalski on stage, I think would have been electric, to see what he would do with it. And maybe not the sexuality of Brando, but a completely different approach that would have been just as exciting to watch.
I'll tell you what's interesting. We obviously talked about Gene Hackman a lot over the summer of his passing. We're currently talking about Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. And you have Duvall. These are three guys, all of whom can deliver a maximum amount of intensity, all of whom can deliver a maximum amount of masculinity and sometimes aggressiveness, and all of those things. And they're all three completely different. They have the feeling of Duvall coming at you, Nicholson coming at you, and Hackman coming at you are all different. They're all their own thing. And Duvall has a rhythm and a voice. Like, his way of speaking is just, that's Robert Duvall. It's his own thing, you know?
Yeah, agreed. I would have been so curious to have seen Robert Duvall's version of Colonel Jessup. We already talked about our ideas for Hackman's version of Colonel Jessup. Duvall's version, I think, would have been very interesting to see as well. Well, right around these time here in the late 1950s, 1959, he starts to appear on television. He's in shows like Alfred Hitchcock Presents, The Naked City, as I mentioned, The Untouchables, Route 66, The Twilight Zone, which I'm sure some of the people who are listening to us have seen every episode of Twilight Zone, and you know specifically which one he's in. The Outer Limits, The Fugitive, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, one of my favorite shows as a kid on repeat. The Time Tunnel, The Wild Wild West, The FBI, and The Mod Squad. That's right, nice. Robert Duvall on The Mod Squad. And while he's building his bones here on screen, he's still on stage. In the 1960s, mid-1965, he wins an Obie Award for an off-Broadway production of as Eddie, again, in A View from the Bridge at the Sheridan Playhouse. And then he made his Broadway debut a year later. So all this time, through the 50s, he's appearing in all these different theaters, all around the East Coast, all around the country, and doesn't make his Broadway debut until 1966. That tells you that maybe Robert Duvall was the kind of guy that was either he was a guy who was like, couldn't quite get there in terms of the Broadway casting, or he was a guy who knew he had to work on his craft and did it in these other places, honing his craft, and then boom, he's ready to be on Broadway. And it is, as Harry wrote in Frederick Knott's Wait Until Dark at the Ethel Barrymore Theater. And we know that one, or at least I know that one. I don't know if you, Steve, you've seen that one with Wait Until Dark with Audrey Hepburn, where she is blind.
I have not seen it.
Three men break into the house to try to kill her, and she has to fight them off throughout. It's a great movie with, I think Alan Arkin plays the Robert Duvall role in the movie. But yes, and his other Broadway performance was as Walter Cole in David Mamet's American Buffalo, and that was in 1977. So did not tread the boards on Broadway that often. But when he got a chance, it was for two incredible productions for sure as well. As I mentioned, he gets into the TV stuff, but then also in the early 1960s is when we see him for the first time on screen, and that is in another iconic role, and that is as Boo Radley in To Kill a Mockingbird. So do you remember him as Boo Radley in To Kill a Mockingbird, Steve? Or has it been a while since you've seen it, or what are your thoughts there?
It's so weird because but this is one of those ones where I saw To Kill a Mockingbird before I really knew who Robert Duvall was, and then went back and went, holy shit, that's Robert Duvall. To Kill a Mockingbird's an interesting one. I haven't watched it in a few years. It's obviously, it's one I've thought about. We haven't talked about doing it on the Cine-Files that much.
Yeah.
Super important book. Sure. And what's interesting about Robert Duvall, because he plays the weird, creepy guy. Like he plays it's really playing off his striking face and what he does with that role. And it is like the opposite of where he ends up going, I think, you know?
Yeah. That's a great point. And, this is a character that is presented to us as a possible murderer, a possible villain, right? But it is through his performance here and his honing his skills as an actor that we find sympathy for him. We find a connection to him, and we see through Scout the relationship that develops between them that is really phenomenal to see. And it's a window into the greatness of what we're going to see as Robert Duvall comes on as an actor in his life. And then throughout the 60s, he plays a number of smaller roles throughout this, including he is a cab driver who ferries Steve McQueen around just before the chase scene in Bullitt. He was Lucky Ned Pepper, who Barry Pepper played in True Grit, but he did his version in True Grit's in 1969's True Grit, fighting John Wayne there at the end, the climactic. So he was certainly laying the groundwork for what was going to come here in the 70s. And Steve, this is where he really takes off in the 70s, right? Because we see him in quite a lot of films, as we mentioned earlier here in The Godfather. We mentioned Apocalypse Now. We also see him in Network. I know that's one of your favorite films, Steve, as well. And this is where he's really kind of establishing himself as an actor of note, an actor to be reckoned with, and an actor that people are going to naturally enjoy as well. And another role that we talked about recently with him, he is also in MASH during the 1970s as well. So looking through the 1970s, this is where Duvall really establishes himself. Your thoughts on him here and the roles he's playing?
If my fantasies about how the world was supposed to work was true, which they are not, the kind of career Robert Duvall has is the one that I believe in, which is that he busted his ass over and over again, doing all sorts of theater, all sorts of television, slowly but surely built up his craft until establishing himself in some key roles, and then he just started working. This isn't like the discovery of the hot young movie star who's suddenly thrown on billboards all across the country. This is a working actor who knows his craft, and suddenly Hollywood realizes, like, oh, this guy is an asset. And the thing I know I said at the beginning, but one of the things I love about him is that he'll come in and play a great supporting part in Network.
Yeah.
And he's fantastic. And I think there's like, like you said, it's one of my favorite movies, which it absolutely is. And his portrayal of the intense, only thinking about success executive is so great. The line, and I can't not hear, I'm just going to say the words. The line that always pops into my head is like, it's a hit. It's a big titted hit. Just only Duvall could say words in that way. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, and I think we see the scope of Duvall as an actor during the 1970s as well, in terms of the way he's able to deliver these performances that at times can be quite iconic. When you talk about Kilgore there in Apocalypse Now, as I mentioned, the executive in Network, but also the quiet, kind of reserved nature of his Tom Hagen. Right. Yeah. He is the guy where Sonny is all over the place and angry, and Michael is this quiet, slow burning fire. Here is Tom, who is trying to keep it all together, trying to be the level headed guy. Are there occasional moments where he loses his temper with Sonny? Yes. But he's also this wounded character when we get to Godfather 2 with how Michael treats him. So it's an interesting role that he plays. And of course, he's the outsider who is on the inside, being someone who is not related to the Corleones by blood, but he's a kid that Sonny found, they brought into the family, but he's no less of a son to Vito Corleone than Michael or Sonny, or a daughter there in what happens. So you see these connections that throughout that he develops, and seeing him vacillate through these performances, even when you look at THX 1138, again, a very quiet performance. And you might argue we don't have a Star Wars without the moderate success of THX 1138 bringing us George Lucas. Certainly you had American Graffiti and other things, but like this is him kind of through his student film, which is what it originally was, making it a feature film and bringing Robert Duvall's really quiet, reserved performance out in that film as well. And of course, this all leads to him being nominated for Best Actor for The Great Santini, having kind of graduated from these roles that are ensemble roles, or as I think people called him Hollywood's number one, number two lead in the mid 1970s. I think that's a great way to describe him until he starts grabbing these roles here where he's the lead.
So you covered a lot of stuff, and I have multiple thoughts. So the first one is just on THX 1138. Yeah, I first saw George Lucas's short film, which he made at USC Film School, when I was a student at USC Film School, and I was working on my own short film, and they said, here, let's show you this little short it's like the same class that I'm doing. And they showed us THX 1138, and I went, fuck. Because it's but in terms of a short student film, it is amazing. The movie THX 1138, have you seen it?
Yes, I have.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It is so boring. I mean, visually, George Lucas has an incredible eye, and there's visual things in it that are great. And it is so, I think it is the least taking advantage of the amazing talents of Robert Duvall as you could possibly imagine, because here you have this dynamic actor and you have this, you know, very cold script and a director who at that time, I mean, this is like 5 years before we get to Star Wars. And when he did Star Wars, he couldn't talk to an actor. So he certainly couldn't talk to an actor on THX 1138. I think I think for, if, you know, this is the Cine-Files, and if all you Cine-Files are watching it, you haven't seen it, you should see it, because it's an important film for many reasons, but it's not good. Then you get, you mentioned MASH, and I just think, again, he plays an incredibly restrained, unlikable, and difficult part in that movie that is not what you're going to see so much from him later on, but is really good. And then to The Godfather, the thing I think that people don't really think about with The Godfather, because you think of The Godfather mostly as there are these two unbelievable starring performances in Al Pacino and Marlon Brando. But really, The Godfather is an ensemble film. Like you really, I mean, Michael is the central character, but you spend a lot of time moving around. And I think one of the interesting things being an ensemble, and I don't know this is just something I'm speculating on, but that I think there's a sense you're playing in the chorus, and not everybody can play the alto or the soprano. Not everybody in the symphony can be the oboe or the flute. You have to find what instrument you can play. And I really think that Duvall realized what James Caan is doing and said, I can't compete, because normally there's all that masculinity and intensity with Duvall, and he's like, oh, if I try to do that, I'm just going to be competing with James Caan. And so I think he sits back, and him sitting back and having that calm and that control is what makes that performance so great. In particular to me, when he's talking to the producer in Hollywood, and the guy's insulting him and saying horrible things about him, and he's super calm, doesn't phase him at all, at his leaving. He's going, by the way, I admire your pictures very much. Like, it's just so in the pocket. And that's what makes that character so powerful. If he had gotten big, he would have actually diminished his power.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think that's when you look at what he can bring to the role, and how to smart actors know, I'm not going to match what they're doing. So I'm going to underplay it, but I'm going to be no less effective as they are by underplaying it. And I would argue it takes even more talent, depending on the situation, depending on the role in the movie, to underplay the role that you've been given, because most actors tend to want to be peacocks. And so to have an actor who here now understands, okay, I'm not the lead of this movie, but I'm going to stand it in my own way. He's no less touching or moving or interesting throughout those two movies. And it's because he plays him, again, he plays him with a humanity, a groundedness that I think we would relate to Tom Hagen. And as you said, when Waltz is dressing him down, he doesn't react to it, because there's a quiet confidence and stability at where he's at, you know?
Well, and you're so right. In Godfather 2, when he's like, you know, why do you have to treat me like this, Michael? It's just so, because there's a sweetness to the Tom Hagen character. Like, he was adopted by this family, and he committed himself to be part of this family and to love this. This is his family. And Sonny, his best friend, he's gone. Yeah. And it's Michael. And it's just, it hurts so much, those moments.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And listen, this is where you see so many, because he's also a part of the conversation. Remember the conversation? He has a small role in the conversation as well. So he is establishing himself very strongly on screen with these incredible film roles. But it says here, around 1977, he goes back to Broadway, as I mentioned here, to lead David Mamet's American Buffalo, after Coppola has called Duvall one of the 4 or 5 best actors in the world. And he did this because, quote, I hope this will get me better film roles. So even he knew, like, he had this hunger, this desire to come out in front, to lead some films now. He was tired of maybe playing second fiddle, being the number 1, number 2 guy, as people described him, and he wanted more. And he receives a Drama Desk Award nomination for Outstanding Actor in a Play for his role there. And that's what launches him now into the 1980s. As I mentioned, Great Santini. And then we get Tender Mercies, which is what he won the Best Actor Oscar for, him and Tess Harper there. I have to admit, this is a film that I have not seen, and I need to correct that very seriously. just as much as I haven't seen The Great Santini either. So these are two holes in my filmography that I need to fill for Robert Duvall from the 1980s. Steve, have you seen either of these films, and what are your thoughts on them?
I'm 50-50 like you. I have not seen Tender Mercies either. And I was so, you know, the weird macabre thing that we do is when an actor passes away, we will frequently do a live show like this. And I always go, well, what couple of movies can I watch? And Tender Mercies was on my list. And the thing I ended up watching, it took up a lot of time. So I watched something else. I didn't get to Tender Mercies, but I have seen Great Santini. And I will tell you, that is a performance. I mean, it is like, I mean, I'm not saying that I like The Great Santini exactly, but holy shit, does Robert Duvall come in with 150% and he is scary and he is charismatic and he is even occasionally funny in a sick way. And it is fucking brutal. That's my feeling about it.
It is so iconic, Steve, that even Austin Powers, Mike Myers uses it in a sequence of Austin Powers with Rob Lowe, when Rob Lowe is playing the younger version of number 2, and he's bouncing the ball off Rob Lowe's face, saying, "You're gonna cry, you're gonna squirt a few," and of course that's off of his battle with his son there in The Great Santini. I've seen that scene before, so that's how resonant that role is. That even all 2 decades later, Mike Myers is calling out to it. But the 1980s is an interesting time. He does True Confessions, Robert De Niro, not necessarily one of the best films they've ever done. Pursuit of D.B. Cooper, that's also a fun little kind of guilty pleasure as well. But then there's a film here that you and I had fun talking about recently, and that is The Natural. He plays Max Mercy there in The Natural. We talked about it recently, did the film, and there he is in that role. And I think he's fantastic. So for all the fact that he wants to lead roles, he's still willing to go in and play these kind of smaller roles to uplift the film. And he delivers every time he walks out there in front of a camera.
One of my favorite performances from him in The Natural. And what makes it so magical to me is that while I should hate him and he's aligned with the bad guys, I still kind of like him a little bit. He still charms me a little bit. And the line, and I think you and I disagreed about it, which is where Redford asks him, "Hey, did you ever play the game?" And he says, "No, but I make it a hell of a lot more interesting." And to me, it's always like, I bet he does make it a hell of a lot more interesting. I bet he is a fun reporter to follow. I bet his little drawings that he does of baseball players and stuff are fun. He's fun, but he's part of the bad guys. I mean, it's so funny. Like, you know, the supporting characters in that movie are all 100% solid, and he is up with Wilford Brimley, top of the bunch. You know,
it's fascinating because you're right. He's not Robert Prosky. He's not Darren McGavin, who are much more straightforward villains, right? And McGavin at times chilling as a villain throughout the film. Max is more like he's a desperate sports writer who has finally found success by being essentially a handmaiden for this owner and for Darren McGavin. But there is a sense of love for the game, but he's cynical. He's been turned cynical, but from all the experiences that he's seen. So he has to tear down Roy Hobbs rather, because he would represent hope. And that's something he lost. And if he remembers that, he then has to turn the sports writer analytical critical thing on himself. And I don't think he's ready to do that. But also the gift about Robert Duvall that I think comes through in something like The Natural and other places is his usage of his voice. You know, I think this is something that people forget about, how actors can really convey emotion and power through their voice and character through their voice. And if you study his voice in The Natural, it's very different than his voice in Apocalypse Now or in Network or in other places. And there's a much more quieter approach at times to Max and the cynical and the little laugh of his, you know, those little things that he does that add character. And it's so interesting and essential to watch him do that. And you compare him to another role. I don't know if you remember this movie, Steve. I don't know if you saw this movie, Steve. I don't think we've ever talked about this movie, but later in the 1980s, because he doesn't have that many strong films in the 1980s. Right near the end of the 1980s, he's in a film called Colors with him and Sean Penn, right? One of the first kind of gang films before even the explosion of a gangster rap in the 1990s. This is in 1988 or 89.
And that's the one directed by Dennis Hopper, right?
Yes, with Sean Penn.
Yep. Oh, I remember this was a big deal when this came out because it was post Blue Velvet, where Dennis Hopper had that resurgence. I think it's before Speed, or maybe it's right around then. Yeah. And you know, this was like an exciting, and it's not a great movie. It's okay.
No,
like that. But yes, I do remember it. I do remember it being a big deal, and Duvall is always good.
Yeah. I liked it because this is where Duvall is transitioning now into the veteran guiding the younger guy, right? He had his run in the 70s establishing himself. He starts out the 80s with some really strong performances to get nominations and win his Oscar, but then he gets kind of lost in these 80s, and now he transitions into being the veteran guiding everybody. And this in Colors, as I said, it's a very, how can I say this? It's an attempt to talk about gang warfare that is happening in Los Angeles, but it is told through a kind of a racist perspective when you go back and look at it now. And then we see something like Boys in the Hood, which is a much more accurate depiction. South Central, Menace to Society. And it's not a coincidence that those are directed by Black filmmakers who have come out of those situations, so they offer authenticity. Dennis Hopper not necessarily having that much knowledge of this stuff, but Duvall's performance is damn good, and what happens to him in the movie is resonant for how it affects Sean Penn's character by the end, you know, which I think is great. But as I said, now he goes into this run of interesting films where he is like, you know, we see him in Days of Thunder. Steve, what are your thoughts of him in Days of Thunder, Falling Down, The Paper? These are interesting roles where he is kind of, as I said, he becomes the statesman, almost the elder statesman here, leading the younger people throughout their situations in these movies. What are your thoughts?
Have we ever discussed Days of Thunder, you and I? I don't think we've talked about it. My assumption about Days of Thunder is that you liked it much more than I do.
Probably.
Because I wasn't the hugest Top Gun fan. So then when I went to go see Days of Thunder, I'm like, you know, so I have not watched that movie since the 80s. I have seen The Paper. I have seen the other ones you mentioned, but none of those movies made a big impression on me at all. Sorry.
Well, no, it's all right. Yeah, I mean, it's a fun film. It's not as good as Top Gun, for God's sakes, but I do enjoy what Duvall does here, man. And I think he's essential to the movie's success. Yeah, Tom Cruise is swaggering. He's out of Top Gun. We get a young Nicole Kidman. It's all fun. But there are moments that Robert Duvall gets alone. And that is something that not a lot of these films did, is to give the elder statesman scenes where he's by himself having conversations. And those scenes when he's by himself, but that one scene when he's talking to the car, in essence, kind of having this spiritual conversation with the chassis of a car, where he's telling the car like how he wants the car to take care of Tom Cruise's character, take care of Cole Trickle, make sure he's okay. You're going to get the job done. It's so interesting. But of course, a master actor like that, you want to give him a monologue like this because he's going to knock it out of the park. And it's one of the best scenes in the movie. Ironically, without Tom Cruise in it, because of the greatness of Robert Duvall, you know, and I think that's a fantastic thing about him. When we get into the 90s, as I said, what are your thoughts on some of these performances, Steve? Falling Down, The Paper, something to talk about, Sling Blade, Phenomenon, which is one of my favorite performances he's ever delivered. And then we'll get to one that or a couple that I really enjoy. Any thoughts on those films, Sling Blade as well? Any thoughts on those?
I've never seen Sling Blade.
Whoa, really?
It's so funny. Like, well, we're going to hear it a lot. There are a bunch of these movies that I haven't seen. Like when I was looking at the list, and this is, you know, like pretty much there's a certain era where my movie watching really slowed down, and there are certain movies that I've missed, and plugging holes in your movie watching resume is like it's become an important job. I keep trying to work on it, but no, there are a bunch I haven't seen. Like things like Falling Down, I really liked, but I haven't seen it in forever. You know, The Paper, he's totally good, but I don't particularly love it's fine. You know, the Paper goes in that category. That's Ron Howard, right?
Yes, Ron Howard. Yes.
It goes into Ron Howard is an excellent craftsman, and when he knocks it out of the park, like Apollo 13 or Beautiful Mind or Cinderella Man, he knocks it out of the park. And otherwise, he'll deliver a well-crafted movie. And I think The Paper kind of falls more into that category for me. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you could argue what Spotlight, The Paper, The Post. These are these kinds of films that you can put into a pocket, and then you decide which ones you resonates with you the most. I remember that's Glenn Close and Michael Keaton fighting on the floor of The Paper. I remember that as a thing. But one of the films that I want to highlight from the 90s that I really loved, Steve, and I can't believe it's been 30 years since I've seen this movie. It's kind of crazy to me, is A Family Thing. I don't know if you remember this movie.
I haven't seen it. There's a long list of ones I haven't seen on all this one.
This is a very touching film, one of those kind of smaller films that Duvall was doing in the 90s. And basically the film is Robert Duvall and James Earl Jones are brothers. And they were born to a white father and black mother, and they were separated at birth. And they discover through the death, I think, of the mother, that they are brothers. And this is essentially a film about black culture and white culture finding a way to come together and unify rather than separate. Because James Earl Jones's family, his black family, doesn't trust him as a white man. Robert Duvall's white family doesn't trust James Earl Jones as a black man. And they have to find their way to each other through the prejudices of their own families and find the common ground. And it's the great Irma P. Hall, who plays the aunt of both of them, that kind of bridges the gap between them. And I think it's a really well done. And as someone who grew up in the South, like, to me, there's a lot of stuff that I gravitated to in this movie that felt very realistic and beautiful in performances. And Duvall has, like, I cried twice in that movie with some of the interactions Duvall has in that film. It's great stuff.
Well, it's going on my list. The long list of Robert Duvall that I have to check out.
Yeah. Another one that's really great from the 90s, Deep Impact. Well, not great in terms of the film, but his performance. I mean, people talked about it after he passed away. His scene with Ron Eldard, where he is reading the novel to him there as Eldard is blind, and it's near the end of the movie. I think that's an incredible one as well. And this is one that I don't know if, Steve, you've seen this one. I don't know if we've talked about this one ever, but I know this is probably maybe top 3 favorite films that Robert Duvall has ever done as a lead. And it's The Apostle. And this is a time when Robert Duvall is like kind of, struggling a little bit. I think he funds this film, or finds the funding for this film, and makes this film. And it's an incredible exploration of forgiveness and navigate God and religion, and really atoning for the sins that you've done in the past, and going through your journey of redemption. It's a phenomenal movie. Have you had a chance to ever see this one?
Finally, we've gotten to another one that I've seen. I think his performance is great. And I think this, to me, it delivers on the promise of, you said that he did American Buffalo.
Yes.
To prove that he could have these other roles. And they didn't really we talked about this whole career we've been talking about through the 80s and early 90s is him coming in and playing a supporting role and doing a fantastic job, which he does in everything. But this is a movie that's his. And it definitely makes you go, oh, there were more movies in this guy in this realm. And, it's in an area where you want to have some examination of this kind of a character,
Yeah. He wrote it, he directed it. So this is, to me, and started it. And, we make a big deal about Brana doing this kind of stuff, but I think there's something really great. And this was at the time where we're still getting like the independent film movement, and this kind of went in that independent film movement kind of category. And I think this is, again, having grown up in the South, there's a lot of things here in this movie that just resonate from my own experiences. And I think test you when you watch this movie, how much you want to forgive this guy or want redemption for this guy, because he does still have those angry impulses. And the things he did are so brutal that you're kind of really have a struggle with yourself. And I don't think you could get away with a movie like this if Duvall didn't have that innate charm to make you want to at least consider forgiving him and going through the redemption arc with him, for sure.
I mean, there's a magic in playing these kind of fraught characters and keeping you in the movie,
Yeah. Not everyone can do that. Yeah, agreed. I think another film from the 90s that I really love, and I got a chance to say to John Travolta how much I love this movie, is Phenomenon. I think he's so tender and beautiful in Phenomenon, and how he's the one person in the town, aside from Forrest Whitaker, who believes what Travolta is going through, his character is going through in the movie, and defends him against how can I say this and be fair, but the fear, the small-mindedness of the town in dealing with what's happening with Travolta's character as he achieves this level of intelligence never seen before and how it upsets the town. He does such a wonderful job and has a scene where he calls out the town at a bar after throwing glass at a window to get their attention and, calls them to the carpet. And there's something really powerful in that Duvall delivers because he's the doctor who essentially birthed Travolta, like was there to bring Travolta out of the womb. And so he's heartbroken to see how the town has turned on someone like George, who he cares about so deeply.
So several things about this. So first of all, and I'm hoping to infect everyone that's listening or watching right now with this problem, which is anytime someone would mention the movie Phenomenon or say the word phenomenon to me or my ex, we would immediately go into Manamana from the Muppets.
Oh, sure.
Where people used to go phenomenon, do 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 do, phenomenon, do 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 do. So now hopefully everyone listening, every time they hear that word or that movie, will do the same thing. You're gonna maybe think this is shocking or crazy, but Phenomenon might be my favorite John Travolta movie.
I love this. I've never known if I've never felt like maybe I could bring this up, with you. I would love to do this movie as kind of
really
a quiet.
Good.
I know it's so good. Nobody talks about it. And I tell you this, when I said this to Travolta to his face at a Critics' Choice Awards ceremony, he was so moved. He grabbed my forearm and he said, "Thank you for saying that about that movie. No, only anybody comes up and talks to me about that one. And I put all of my heart and soul in that one." He said that to me. And I was like, brother, it's an amazing performance. And I might agree with you, Steve. I might agree with you that that's my favorite John Travolta performance because I go back and watch that movie. Dude, I cried through that movie. It's so touching.
It's one that pops up like on social media or something. There'll be a clip like it's the one where he's with Brent Spiner and he says, "Name every animal starting with A" or whatever. I worked on that movie when I had the DVD quality control job. So it was one where I watched it a lot. And it's one of the one where it's like, oh yeah, I'll watch Phenomenon again. Because it's really, and his performance is really self-contained, Travolta's, and very sweet. I mean, it's very sweet. And it connects a lot to, the short story Flowers for Algernon, which is the first thing I read, one of the first things I read to make me cry. And so it's really good. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I agree. Well, now we get into the 2000s. I don't know where you want to go with this stuff, Steve. He's in Gone in 60 Seconds, The Sixth Day, John Q. One of my favorite Westerns ever, which we've talked about. Hopefully one day we'll do on the show. Or did we do it on the show? I don't remember, but Open Range.
No, we haven't done it on the show. Great movie.
Bro, I would love, if we do this, I would love to lead it. This is one of my favorite Westerns, bar none, of the most recent 25 years. And he is great in here. Once again, kind of being this counsel for Kevin Costner, who's playing a much more brutal character with issues from his past. And Duvall is the guy who is navigating him through all of this stuff that's going on until their confrontation with Michael Gambon. And he's so great in this movie. And he doesn't seem to come back and do Westerns that often. But I'm so sorry I haven't mentioned this for some of you who are massive fans of him, but his work in Lonesome Dove is amazing. People think this is one of the greatest TV series ever. Speaking of Westerns, Lonesome Dove, and I sorry to have gone past it without mentioning it when we were in the 80s there. So your thoughts on him as we go into these 2000s and maybe if you've seen Lonesome Dove, any thoughts on that as well?
Well, as we've mentioned many times, there are certain times where you and I in our past may or may not have lied about having seen something. I have tried to be extremely honest on this show so far about saying when I haven't seen something. I don't know that any recent time I had lied about not seeing Lonesome Dove, but if someone brought up Lonesome Dove, I might have said, like, so it's like, oh, Lonesome Dove's so great. And I might have gone, or, oh, Lonesome Dove, but not really confirmed the fact that I had never seen it. I hadn't seen it, and I knew, and a whole bunch of people told me how great it was, and I didn't see it. And then I ended up listening to the book. So I listened to the book because it probably showed up on a sale on Audible or something like that. And that book is really fucking depressing. Yeah. And I didn't really love it. I mean, it was one of those where like I appreciated this is a very well-written book, but I was so bummed through the whole thing. And so I decided when Mr. Duvall passed away that I was going to watch Lonesome Dove. So that's why I didn't watch Tender Mercies. I watched because it's 6 hours. So I watched all of Lonesome Dove in the last 3 days.
Wow.
Holy shit, it's so fucking good. Oh my God, I cannot believe how good it is. It is, because what's so different, it's like a post-Western Western.
Yeah.
It is so human. It is very dark. And the character that he plays of Gus is the most beautiful, positive character who's also a badass that you could possibly imagine. I mean, what he does, and I must have cried 7 times in the course of Lonesome Dove. It's so good. And the cast is fucking insane. I mean, I knew it was him and Tommy Lee Jones. I didn't know that there was a young Diane Lane, a young Ricky Schroeder, D.B. Sweeney. There's Steve Buscemi is in it. Like there's just Angelica Houston is in it. Like Chris Cooper, a young Chris Cooper is in it. Like the cast is ridiculous. And it is, I'm just saying that I've just watched it. So this is just my first, but I'm like, this might be the best miniseries ever made. I don't know. Like it's really good. So it's just my first glow of having just saw it, but it's really, really good.
Well, I'm going to make a turn here because I think this is a great opportunity to move into the TV stuff here for him, because I've been remiss to not mention too much of the TV stuff. And he certainly has found a lot of success on TV as well. And he, as you mentioned, Lonesome Dove, that's an iconic series. I still have never seen it. Now that you're telling me you loved it in 6 hours, I'm going to find my way to see this thing.
It's really good.
Is it on anything that you want, like a streaming service, or did you buy it?
It's on Peacock. And it is the fucking worst. They put in commercials just random. Like someone's like, you know, I got to tell you something. And then we go to a commercial for Cialis or something. And then they come back and they tell, I mean, it's like they randomly just put spot, and there are a ton of commercials. Well, so that sucked. But it is free on Peacock.
Well, the thing is, Steve, the fact that it worked for you still, even with those commercials, tells you how great that series is then, right? For sure.
It's really good.
He won a Golden Globe and received an Emmy nomination for his portrayal of Soviet Premier Joseph Stalin in the 1992 TV film Stalin. I've never seen that.
Now I never even heard of it.
He earned another Emmy nomination in 1977 for portraying Adolf Eichmann in The Man Who Captured Eichmann. And in 2006, he won an Emmy for his performance as Prentice Ritter in the AMC miniseries revisionist Western Broken Trail. That's another one now I need to add Westerns wise to my collection here to see. But yeah, any of the TV stuff besides Lonesome Dove that you've seen? Okay.
No, I have not.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Same. So I'll have to remedy that myself. So we go into the 2000s, as I said, some interesting films here. We Own the Night, which a lot of people really love. Four Christmases, one of my quietly favorite guilty pleasures at Christmas to watch. He plays John Favreau and Tim McGraw, and I think Vince Vaughn's dad, which is really funny. The Road, that really
talk about bleak.
Yes, I was just going to say, I was trying to find the word. That's the word. And he's damn good in that as the old man in that. And Crazy Heart, which I totally forgot he was in Crazy Heart. And watched some scenes from him on YouTube to prepare for our conversation. Then he shows up as a gunnery sergeant in Jack Reacher. And I remember him in The Judge. He is with Robert Downey Jr. He is Robert Downey Jr.'s dad. This is one of those Robert Downey Jr. films right out of Marvel that didn't quite do so well box office wise, but he got nominated for Best Supporting Actor in that movie. I think it was his last nomination. And then we get to things like Wild Horses, Widows, 12 Mighty Orphans, which is a timepiece film. And then at the end, Hustle with Adam Sandler, and then Pale Blue Eye. So 2 Netflix movies to wrap up his career there that you guys can catch on Netflix as well. So your thoughts on his work through the 2000s into the 2010s and 20s? Anything you want to say here that you've seen?
This is where I feel like a bad host of the Cine-Files, because most of those I haven't seen. You know, like it just, we get into the I haven't. Again, this is my list of movies I was going to try to get to. The Judge is another one. The Judge I know is supposed to be great. From everything I've heard, it sounds like this was kind of his last great performance, but I haven't seen it, and I can't compare it to the other things I haven't seen. So
He also did a quiet film that I liked. I know it didn't get the best reviews, but A Night in Old Mexico, and this was in 2013. I just randomly saw that one day on one of the streaming channels and put it on, and I kind of enjoyed it. It's from a Latino director, and he is Duvall plays this guy who is financially strapped. but a proud senior citizen with his estranged grandson. They find themselves targeted by drug dealers in search of a missing money bag. So I kind of liked it for what it was, and I thought he was damn good in it, bringing his kind of like Western energy that he's always had to this role. So, one of the kind of last few films I saw of his, because I have not seen Widows, and I never saw Hustle, and I never saw The Pale Blue Eye. So I didn't see, as like you, I didn't see these last few films. The Judge and A Night in New Mexico are probably the last two films I saw that he was in. So I do need to remedy that at some point. So, but yeah, I mean, this is when you go through, just to add a little bit more to him, Steve, as well. In 2005, Duvall was awarded a National Medal of Arts by President George W. Bush. There, as I mentioned, he was nominated for a Golden Globe, a Screen Actor Guild, and all of that for The Judge. In 2015, he at age 84, he became the oldest actor ever nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for The Judge, as I mentioned here. And so, and these are the things where we kind of wrap up his performances, his accolades, and his work. So, anything more you want to say about him that we haven't touched on or haven't highlighted or haven't explored here before we get to some of the questions from our viewers?
I think just that it's obviously a tragedy that he's passed away, but what it has done is given me a kick in the ass to watch Lonesome Dove, and now I have Tender Mercies and The Judge and several other heroes on this list that I'm like, I really should give this guy, honor him with the respect that he deserves,
Yeah, I agree. Well, I just think, he's just a fantastic actor in so many ways, and didn't necessarily do like 170 films. You didn't catch him doing like De Niro and Pacino have reduced themselves to here at the tail end of their careers, really dumb comedies or bad. Like he always like kind of picked stuff out that was interesting to watch. The films may not have been great, but he certainly was. And I think that's a positive overall when you look at an actor like this. All right, well, let's get into some questions, Steve, from our listeners. Carlton Runner, what's up, Carlton? He says, London Calling wanted to honor Robert Duvall, direct descendant of Robert E. Lee and former U.S. postal worker, to one of America's greatest actors. Carlton is absolutely right. He worked in the post office before he became a successful actor. Yes. You got to do what you got to do, Steve.
And he's a descendant of Robert E. Lee and played Robert E. Lee because he's in Gods and Generals. That's fascinating.
Yep, 100%. Yes, he did. Thank you, Carlton. Much love, brother, man. KJ7457 says, my favorite Duvall performance is in The Apostle. What do you think of that film? Yeah, we talked about it. Certainly, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it's my favorite, but it is definitely a fantastic performance.
I would put it in the top 3
of
my favorite performances because it is so raw. It's so raw. And that scene he has with Billy Bob, when he breaks Billy Bob down and Billy Bob just is crying in his arms because his anger and rage, he's broken through his anger and rage. As someone who watched that in my mid-20s, who had my own anger and rage going on at that time, that scene always devastated. And it's kind of interesting to watch it now as an older man. When I watched that scene the other day, and I was like, man, it's a whole nother. I'm Duvall in that, right? Whereas when I was younger, I was Billy Bob, and so it's just a fascinating thing when I look at it. Yeah. Wiley OFC says, I watched Tender Mercies for the first time after he passed. He is fantastic when the film is over. When the film is over flat. I love. I don't know what that means, Wiley. Sorry. Watch Tender Mercies for the first time after he passed. He is fantastic when the film is over flat. I love him in The Judge and Kicking and Screaming. Oh, Kicking and Screaming. Right. Robert Duvall. I love that. Yeah. K. Joseph says, what do you think of Duvall's performance in The Great Santini? This was a truly complex performance. Well, I think Steve can take this one. I've never seen it. So
he's like a sweet, cuddly teddy bear most of the time. Very open, emotionally sensitive to other people's needs. No, it's a wrecking ball. It's funny. We were obviously in the middle of A Few Good Men. And A Few Good Men is a film in which there is a standard and a code for a Marine.
Yeah.
And that code must be met. And if you have to bully and beat someone into reaching that level, into hitting that standard, then that's what's necessary. And that is what The Great Santini is. He is very, very clear on what he expects from people, and he is going to get it,
Well, I mean, the film came out in 1979, And it feels very much like a 70s film. And you know, the 70s films were about exposing the ugly underbelly of the systems in our society. And I would argue, as much as we look at Apocalypse Now or some of these anti-war films, there were children who were suffering at the hands of these military guys, and it was not shown that much on screen. And I think the great Santini, from the clips that I've seen, shows what it was like for a lot of kids to grow up under the rule of a military person, especially someone who indulged their hard edge kind of discipline on their kids. That's something I certainly saw from people I grew up with in Virginia who had military parents. Some of the ways that they would be treated by their family shocked the shit out of me. I remember one time, the kid's name is Glenn. He's since passed on. I was in high school with him. We were all at a kids get together in middle school or whatever. And his dad was a military guy, scary guy. And his son stepped out of line in some way, in a public way. And his dad raced across the room, grabbed him in front of everybody, took off his boot and beat him with his boot to make him apologize. I will remember that till the day I'm dead, because Glenn was a big dude. And to see him reduced to crying in his father's arms, who's holding him and beating him because he embarrassed his father, because his father was all about discipline and code and respect. It was because Glenn had smarted back to a teacher. It was a mind-blowing thing to witness, you know? And so I had quite a few friends who dealt with that kind of harsh treatment from their military fathers.
Shit like that will freak you out, man.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
I've never trusted boots since. Cajun said, Steve, what was the biggest challenge that you found when directing a film for the first time? The biggest challenge. Wow.
Oh, this is okay. Not Robert Duvall related. Here's what I'll say. So I came up, John, like you, in theater, and in theater, and that's how I learned to work. You know, first I was an actor and acted in plays from, grammar school, junior high school, college. Then I started directing plays. And what you learn in theater is that you have this thing called a rehearsal process. And so the way I was taught as a director, particularly when I started working on professional plays as a stage manager, my mentor, I went up to him one day and because he said he knew I wanted to be a director. And he said, anytime you have a thought, we'll meet after every single rehearsal and you can tell me what your thoughts of the rehearsal, which is great. So after rehearsal, I said, there's this moment we were doing True West, fantastic play. And I said, there's this moment where Austin is doing this. And I think the moment's really about this. And he said, you're absolutely right. You're 100% right. But I am not going to tell that actor this yet because I want the actor to discover it on their own. And I went, oh. And that's one of the big directing things is like you want to lead the actor to the place. You don't want to just tell them. And so if they find it on their own, they own it. It's so much better. And so that was my philosophy of directing. And then I show up on a film set for the first time where the camera is rolling now.
Yeah.
I can't wait for an actor to discover something. Is that the realization of because rehearsal is a process of slowly for a play, of slowly getting it to the place where it's right. And then you go to, blocking rehearsals, then you do run throughs, then you do tech rehearsals, and you do costumes, you bring in the props, and then you do dress rehearsal, and then you do preview, and now you're up to speed. In a movie, you're on the set and you're shooting and this is it. And you can never fit. And that was the hardest thing for me was to go film is permanent. Yeah. I can't ever adjust this again. If the actor doesn't understand this right now, or if I don't have the camera move perfect right now, or if I don't, then it will never be correct. That was the hardest lesson going from theater directing to film directing.
Damn, that's great to know, bro. Vincent Zawada coming in here. What's up, Vincent? Says favorite Duvall performance is Network. Him yelling at Holden is amazing. Other than Pacino and Oldman, there was no one better at yelling on screen.
I'm with it. What's so funny though is both Pacino and Oldman have become their memes. They've become a cliche. Kind of. I don't know that Duvall has quite so much. Like Pacino, like later career Pacino, he's always going to do that thing, whatever it is. But Duvall yelling, as I quoted him earlier, I love it.
Duvall yells in an oval way. And if I can explain that, it's like it's that oval. He does this oval thing, whereas Pacino's is Pacino's is at you and from a flat line. Like, you know, Duvall's is always in a round oval kind of way, which I really appreciate. He's at the top of his nasal. KJ7457 says, regarding acting, can you think of an actor's performance that was so amazing that they made a mediocre film into a great film? Yes, Daniel Day-Lewis and Lincoln. I think that film is mediocre as fuck from Spielberg, but Daniel Day-Lewis is transcendent in that film.
That's
Steve,
a
what
good
do you
one.
got?
I mean, I've said this before, and many people are going to get mad at me for it, but it's Robert Downey Jr. and Iron Man. I think Iron Man, when you think about the movie itself and what's actually going on, it's okay. And Robert Downey Jr. gives an A+ charisma off the charts performance. That's what elevates that movie.
I might get, I might have to say, because I'm thinking of a female actress who did this, and I might have to say Julia Roberts in Brockovich. I don't think Brockovich is that strong of a movie. She is incredible in that movie, and a lot of the scenes with her in that movie are the reason why that movie is so good.
I can see that.
And it's kind of how I look at it when I look at Brockovich, because that's what I run back to and enjoy that often. But when I see her, I just go, yeah, that's the reason that film had as much success as it did. You know,
I don't think this is quite fair. I think there are many things in this film that are cool, but I will say that part of the reason that there are 4 more of them is because of this guy's performance, and that's Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, good call. Wow, good call. I think that's good. Well, I mean, I think this is appropriate because Duvall, no matter what quality of the film it was, him being in it kind of elevated those films or elevated the performances because he always delivered, for sure.
Yep.
Thank you, KJ. Great question, bro. Wayne, what's up, Wayne Edwards? Good to see you. Wayne says,
Wayne.
Good afternoon, fellas. My favorite Duvall role is Kilgore in Apocalypse Now. I remember seeing Redo and the final cut in the theaters, and both times the character exits the films. Huge applause from the audience. Amazing. Wow.
It must be, first of all, thank you very much for your question and your support. I don't know if you can know that someone's coming in to deliver an iconic performance, but it is an iconic. It's like, you know, it's like Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs. Not on screen very much, steals every single second. You cannot take your eyes off him.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. I've never been in a theater where they've clapped for Robert Duvall, but I would not fault them at all for Robert Duvall coming in and out of that and getting an applause from the audience for sure. Thank you, Wayne. Alan Smithy says, and this might be our last one for now. If you guys want to keep us on, you can send in more super chats or Streamlabs, but this is our last one for now. Alan Smithy, what's up, Smithy? He says, don't forget Duvall's earth-shattering performance in Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Was he a pod person or just a creepy-looking priest?
I mean, why not both? I haven't seen that movie. I haven't seen that movie since film school. It freaks me out, honestly.
I don't remember him in that movie. That's how long ago it's been since I've seen it. Like, go ahead. Yes.
I mean, what's so fun because have you seen the original Body Snatchers?
No.
Because so that one is there's like the 50s Body Snatchers movie, and it's a 50s horror movie. The 78 Body Snatcher is really creepy. It is not. I don't remember it very well. I saw it in film school in class on one of those mornings after an all-nighter. Right, and it particularly, I'm sure you've had this where there are times where you can watch a scary movie and be a tough guy. And there are times where emotionally, for whatever reason, that day, you were fragile. So yeah, I saw this movie, freak me out. I never watched it again.
Good point. Because I would like to see the iconic Donald Sutherland point and scream. I'd like to see that in context rather than just a meme or a GIF, as I have throughout my life. This wasn't a super chat, but this might lead us into a thing we're going to announce here on the show, Steve. Brumble Bass says, is there any Duvall movie coming from you guys? Well, we do have plans. What are our plans here, Steve?
Well, there's a lot going on right now. So we are right in the middle of the season of Reiner, and we just before we got on the mic for this show, we recorded most of part 2 of A Few Good Men. We've got Stand By Me coming. We're also planning on re-releasing the Rob Reiner movies that we have done in the past, which are Spinal Tap, Misery, and The Princess Bride.
Right.
So we've got those things coming out, and we talked about whether or not we wanted to re-release the Robert Duvall movies we've done, which has been mentioned here, are Network, The Natural, the Godfather movies, and Apocalypse Now, obviously.
Right.
The thing about those is that he is a supporting character. And so I'll put it this way, and John, I think you agree, if there is an outpouring of support of re-releasing those films, we can do it, but it means that we're re-releasing those, the Rob Reiner movies, the reviews of all the Oscar movies leading up to our Oscars. So it's a lot of stuff happening now.
Yeah.
I'd be more curious if there is a Robert Duvall movie that we haven't done, that maybe at some point later in the year, we can do a new movie of Robert Duvall as a tribute for him, maybe even one of the ones that John and I haven't seen, like Tender Mercies or something
Tender
like that.
Mercies. Yeah, I think that would be, or Phenomenon, right? Would Phenomenon be the one?
See how it works now?
I do. I'm not going to do it, but I see how it works.
Well, it's an interesting phenomenon.
Oh boy, here he goes. But yeah, I think it would be fun to do a Robert Duvall film we've never done, and especially something like Tender Mercies, because he won the Oscar for it. So maybe 10 people will listen to it, but it might be fun for us to explore that, because certainly something we haven't seen. It's rare when Steve and I do a film we both haven't seen. So
I think it's only happened once, and that was Night of the Hunter, which neither of us had seen.
Oh, that's right, the Robert Mitchum film. Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, is there we have no more questions. Is there anything more you want to say about Robert Duvall, or shall we wrap up, or any more announcements we need to make about our show coming up? Oh, sorry, as I say that, we got one more. Michael McKenzie. Thank you, Michael. He says, I know it's a Duvall show, but do you have any thoughts about James Vanderbeek? I have a soft spot for Varsity Blues. Well,
I mean, it's really sad. Honestly, I never watched. It's Dawson's Creek, right? I'm just showing down my ignorance. I never watched that. I haven't watched all of his stuff. I have seen Varsity Blues, but I mean, it's sad. From everything I've heard, it sounds like he was a good guy, and it's really sad.
It's a really complicated loss, because I know a lot of people, Vogel, other people that we know, Steve, who grew up with Vanderbeek at his peak when they were young adults or teenagers, were really affected by his passing. Because you and I have been through this, where a contemporary of ours passes, or a person we watched passes, and it like reminds us of our own mortality.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I saw a lot of people tweeting about it or talking about it amongst our friends who were like rocked by this death. I think Michael even said he cried, which Michael rarely cries unless it's a movie.
I thought he was heartless.
I didn't say that. But I know that's something that is really resonant. And so I'm sad, because, we just also lost Eric Dane, who had to go through, who suffered through ALS before passing, I think 53 years old only.
Yep.
And so heartbreaking on so many levels when these guys who have been, part of our entertainment landscape go in these random diseases. And I always go, how the hell am I avoiding this stuff? How the hell am I surviving? How have I not contracted these things? And so it just makes you aware of your own place in the world and your own mortality. And there is other stuff going on behind the scenes. Sadly, there's drama involved about his GoFundMe page and his own political personal beliefs. So sadly, in our society now, all of that gets mixed into trying to appreciate someone after they pass. So it's a sad state of affairs. But either way, 6 children are without a father. A wife is without a husband. And a lot of people are robbed of what more Vanderbeek could have done as he got older as an actor, because I think he was always trying to do more and more things to break out of the Dawson thing and show his levels of talent.
I'm sorry to hear about that stuff with and honestly, this is where social media is just, I'm glad I didn't read any of that. You know, my life is not improved. My life would not have been improved if I knew more about shenanigans with the GoFundMe or anything else. Like, honor the person who passed away. He was a young guy, an actor that people cared about. I'm done,
Fair point. KJ comes in and says, what is it about Phenomenon that is so powerful? I've never seen it.
I mean, a movie I haven't seen in a while, but like my memory is, it's very much the story of a sweet person who gets this unbelievable gift, and then how the world can't, it's what you said, that people get afraid of him, and it's,
it's a commentary. Now, some people have called it a Scientology movie because Travolta, of course, is a well-known Scientologist, but I don't see it through that prism. It's not like Battlefield Earth, which is a very obvious thing. This is much more a film, as Steve said. It's one of my favorites. I've seen it so many times. It's very touching. because of the relationship that Travolta's character George has with Kira Sedgwick. She is a woman who is fresh out of a divorce and has kids, and she is just trying to live her life. And here comes George, who has an attraction for her. He's a simple guy, as Steve said. I think he's a mechanic. His best friend is Forrest Whitaker, who is also kind of a chill, simple guy as well, living in this town. And then out of nowhere, one night, George is hit by this flash of light from space, and he acquires this incredible level of intelligence, and it unsettles people having this kind of intelligence. And he's able to learn Portuguese in like 2 hours and have a conversation to save a child. He does all these wonderful things with his powers to help people. But unfortunately, because some people are simple-minded and afraid of change, they turn on him. His own town's people, the people he grew up with, he never left the town. They turn on him. And it's about what happens sometimes with people when they achieve a certain level of something, how people all of a sudden get caught in their own fears, their own anger, their own sense of importance or entitlement, and take it out on that person rather than appreciating them. They want to destroy them and denigrate them so that they can maintain their own world order or their own social construct in their minds. And I think it's a great film that challenges that. And Travolta is so soulful in his performance that by the time the thing happens at the end of the movie that happens to him, you're so dialed in. And, you know, even now I can cry thinking about the scene he has with Kira Sedgwick that is so touching. And so it's a great message by the end of that movie of what he goes through. Yeah.
My memory of it, and like I said, like I worked on the DVD, but that's in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I've watched it once since then. But my memory of it, he's a really good guy.
Yes.
He's trying to be a good guy. That's the sweetness of the whole thing. And that's why, in a simple person, you know, who's just trying to be a good guy. Like that's all you need for me.
Yeah, I agree. The black and white is very clear to him. And the powers, all they do is augment what he already is.
Yep.
And that's what's a really great thing to take out of that movie for sure. All right, so let's wrap it up there, Steve. Anything more we want to say, or what your final thoughts on Robert Duvall as we wrap up our tribute here? And thanks to everybody who's joined us live and for all the super chats and Streamlabs. Your thoughts here?
It's funny when Rob Reiner passed away, and we did a similar thing. I had seen all of the major things, and then hadn't seen some of the later things. Maybe I'm saying the same thing a bit about Robert Duvall, but I think for me, it's like the iceberg principle, which is, okay, I've seen Apocalypse Now, Network, and MASH, and all of those, but there's a whole bunch on this list I haven't seen. So for me, A, it's the loss of a great actor, and B, a down-to-earth actor who, as we said at the very beginning, took his work seriously, but maybe didn't take himself all that seriously. And now I have a whole bunch of movies to look forward to. That's kind of my feeling right now.
Yeah, I would say, just, you know, as an actor, I always marvel and appreciate the great actors, and because they're not like the other great actors. And what makes Robert Duvall so great is he's not like the other great actors, yet he's no less talented, no less effective, no less powerful in the things that he does, and he leaves an iconic legacy of great characters that you know by name. You hear Tom Hagen, and you know immediately. You hear Colonel Kilgore, you know immediately. You hear Boo Radley, you know immediately. You know, so there's so many great performances that he leaves us with. And he was a guy who worked his way up, had a brief run of leading films, and then went back to what he does best, is supporting the main character. And he was no less as effective, no less as moving and powerful in those films as he was in his iconic films that he won Oscars for, and did it on the stage, did it on TV, and did it in film. And when you conquer all three of those mediums and win awards in all three of those mediums, boy, you done good. And so I think this is where we go where we leave him with, at 95 years old, he leaves an incredible legacy as a phenomenal actor. And I think going out at 95, he's lived a hell of a life. And I think that's something to be celebrated and appreciated and lifted up in our world. Because as we spoke about a few minutes ago, sadly, some actors don't get to achieve a lot before up until 95 before they pass on. And thankfully, Robert Duvall did, for sure.
Well said, sir. Agreed.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. All right. So for those of you who are listening to this, this is going to replace our part 2 of A Few Good Men. That is going to be coming next week. But as Steve already mentioned, we're going to be reissuing some of these Robert Duvall movies. We're also going to be diving into very soon our breakdowns of the top of the 10 nominated films for Best Picture. Look out for that from us as well. And of course, all of that leading to our own Oscars, the Cine-Files Oscars, which are happening this Saturday before the event of the Oscars on Sunday, that we'll be doing live on this channel. So put that on your calendar as well to look forward to. Anything more we need to say as we wrap up, Steve?
Well, absolutely. And in terms of the Cine-Files Awards, you get to vote. So we are going to have, I think we're going to release it a week before we have our award show. I think that's what we said.
Yeah.
There will be, you can vote by just going to patreon.com/thecine-files and joining any tier, including the free tier. So it costs you nothing. All you have to do is join our Patreon free tier. You get access to that, the voting, and then not only are we going to have our award show where you pick the winners, but the winner of Best Picture from the Cine-Files Awards, not from the Oscars, we are going to do a full deep dive. So we don't know if that's going to be Begonia or Sinners or One Battle After Another or F1 or whatever else it could be, but we will do the full Cine-Files treatment on whatever wins, and that means you really should sign up so you can vote in that award show. And of course, patreon.com/thecine-files, as well as Apple Podcast, is the best place to support our show and allow us to keep making this thing.
Yeah, you can follow Steve at SR Morris. You can follow me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and Instagram, all social media. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel down below there as well. And if this is your first time discovering us here on the Cine-Files, we've been doing our podcast for almost 10 years. I think our 10-year anniversary is coming up. So please go and find us wherever you download podcasts and see all the years of films that you can enjoy that we've done for the last almost decade here on the show. So from partner Steve Morris, I'm John Rocha. Take care of yourselves. Be well. RIP to the great Robert Duvall. And we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode here of the Cine-Files. Peace to all of you. Until then, take care.